I have actually been banned from Playful Peacock bookstore. Long story. Agueda is a drafting game for 1 to 5 players. Players will be drafting these beautiful umbrellas and placing them on their streets in an attempt to create the most stunning umbrella arrangement to attract tourists, all whilst attempting to complete a mural. And all of this is done in the name of gaining points. During a player's turn, they will choose one of these, I guess you can't really call them columns or rows because they run diagonal. We'll just say rows. A player will choose one of these rows. Let's say I chose this row here. I take all of the umbrellas that are in that row. Now, depending on which row you choose, you may have to pay a coin or you may gain a coin from the bank. That row that I chose there, I actually have to pay a coin to the bank. See how there's a negative chicken token there. I will then place them somewhere on my player board. I choose one street and I have to place all of the tiles that I chose on that street. I can choose the order in which they go on that street, but they do have to go on one singular street. You can't split them up. So let's say I put those 3 down here on the bottom. Check to see if you covered up a paintbrush, and if you did, if that color mural section has not been flipped, then you flip it over. And I have now completed a section of that mural. And murals are good for 2 reasons. They give you points at the end of the game, and they also unlock extra tourists. Tourists are important, and we'll get to that in just a second. Now, if you ever complete both segments of your mural in a row, that is how you unlock that tourist. And that tourist will then go over here to the pool of tourists that you already have unlocked. The next step is you can attract 1 or 2 tourists. In this case, if I were to attract 1 tourist, I could put them down here on this bottommost street. Now, I would score 1 point per matching umbrella on that street there. But I can only choose 1 color because I only sent 1 tourist. For instance, here I could maybe choose the green and score 2 points. But I could have sent 2 tourists down there and then choose to score green and purple. So I would score 1, 2, 3 points for placing 2 tourists there. You can only place tourists on a tile that doesn't have any tourist on it. My next turn, I can only choose to place tourist on this top or this middle tile. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't or do not wish to attract any tourists, the only other option you have is to take a break, which then resets and sends all your tourists back to their umbrella garrison. Sends them back to your supply, and then you take the bottommost of those tourist tiles and it goes to the top, sliding all the other ones down. Now, this creates a problem because you can't then keep spamming green and purple umbrella points on that same location. It kind of mixes things up a bit and makes you work outside of your umbrella comfort zone. And yes, you can, instead of placing 1 or 2 tourists, you can choose to take a break to maybe prematurely start cycling those tourist tiles. And conveniently, all of those steps are printed on your player board. And play continues until 1 player fills in their board completely. That player then takes the bicycle token, which it serves no other purpose other than it is a nice piece of screen printed wood on both sides, mind you. And I guess you can maybe write it down your street. Anyways, the other players all get 1 more turn. You will then proceed to in-game scoring. In addition to the points you've collected throughout the game from bringing tourists to look at your awesome umbrellas on your street, you will also gain victory points for how much of your mural you have completed. You will also gain victory points for these different shop cards that were dealt out at the beginning of the game. During setup, you will randomly choose 2 of these shop cards. There is a 3rd one printed on the board that scores the same every time. And no matter what you do, don't shuffle and deal out 3 of them covering up the pre-printed one, because it doesn't say you can do that in the rule book. And I would never consider house ruling that ever to make it a little spicier. I never would do that. I have not done that like most of the times we played. Not once. So based upon the different scoring criteria of these cards, players will gain extra points. And some of those can be kind of spicy, giving you a little extra something to think about while you're playing the game. And should you have not filled in all the spaces on your streets, you will be penalized and lose 1 point per empty space on your streets. And then the player with the most points is the winner. These pieces are just so nice. And they kind of look like delicious little starbursts. Don't try to chew them. Sometimes I just like to fondle the bag. Oh. So in short, draft umbrella pieces, put them on your streets, bring in tourists, get some points for them, try to complete a mural while you're doing so. Keep in mind these scoring cards, fill in your streets, get the most points, win Agueda. I think I said it right. Agueda. Got it. If nothing, this game is beautiful and exquisitely produced. This is the type of game that it looks so good and the pieces are so nice and textile that you could take this game maybe to work or somewhere where there's people who don't typically play modern board games, show them how fun they can be and how accessible they can be. This game is very easy to teach. The rulebook is nice and clear. But back to the production. The production is insane on this. The player boards are all nice and thick. They're like the boards are actually like wrapped with the print, and each one of them has slightly different artwork on them, which is nice. The star of the show is obviously those umbrella pieces, and they're printed on those umbrella pieces too. They are so nice, chunky, textile, and I thought it might be a pain trying to flip them to the correct side up, but it's really not. I don't know, they're so easy to pick up, I think due to that umbrella-ish shape. They're super easy to handle, awesome. The meeples in it are excellent wood meeples, screen printed on both sides again, and then there's that bizarre bicycle token. I don't know, it's just like a bicycle token for, I don't know. It's just a bicycle token. And this game is super light and short. I have taught this game and played this game. It was granted only 2 players, but in under 20 minutes. It is super fast. The game does kind of feel smaller than the box, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not a very, it's more of a filler game, although it is produced to the max. And this game is very nice. Like, it's a nice game. It's not a mean game. I, for one, prefer games to be a little mean and a little more player interaction than this one. However, this is a enjoyable tile drafting game. With that being said about the player interaction, you can't even plan your turns, really, unless you're playing a 2-player game, because that market of umbrellas changes so much by the time it gets back around to your turn. So you can't really map out or plan for your turns. However, the turns go so quick anyways, it's not really an issue, you know, because, well, it only takes a second to figure out which section of umbrellas you're going to take anyways. Filling in the mural is not the only key to victory. My first few plays, I thought, well, you know, I got to focus on this mural, but that's not the case. I've seen players and myself, I've also won by not completing the mural. Sometimes if you have 5 pieces, I believe, of the mural completed, that's still 4 points, and you only get 6 points if you were to complete the whole mural. So, you know, it's only a 2-point difference there. It's not the end of the world. And I've tried the strategy of just cycling through the tourist tiles to maybe load up one section of street with just the all blue tiles and try to spam that and score a bunch of points that way. It doesn't really work out like I hoped it would. I was kind of hoping that that would be a valid strategy, but it's not. But I will say, though, I do like that the way you cycle through those tourist tiles, because it does force the players to do a little forward thinking. You're trying to load up a street with umbrellas that will be coming up, so that way you can score those with tourists as well. I'm not typically a big fan of house rolling games, but in this game I do think it is nice to spice up the game a little bit and deal out 3 of the shop cards, because the third shop card that is printed on the game board, I feel is kind of lame. I understand it's probably like a catch-up mechanism where it just takes the umbrellas that didn't score you points for the other 2 cards and just gives you a half point for each one of those. I get it, but it's not that exciting. So that's why I would suggest shuffling them and dealing out 3. But overall, this is a fantastically produced, beautiful looking game. Nice tile drafting game. You play it in like 20 to 30 minutes. The game does feel much smaller than the box would lead you to believe, so be aware of that going into it. Overall, solid game. Giving this one a 3 out of 5. Myself, I prefer games a little more mean and a little more player interaction, but still a solid game, and it's still staying in my collection for the time being. And if you're looking for something with a little more player interaction, check out my review of 25th Century's game, Donut Shop. It'll be here or there. Absolutely loving me some Donut Shop. Super awesome tile laying game. Check it out. And thank you so much for your time and watching another episode of Rolling with the Beard.